This battle is about to explode. Live and let die.
It's the full preview podcast. UFC 320.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the full preview. This is the full preview for UFC 320. This is going on in Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. We have a big rematch between current light heavyweight champion Magomed Ankalaev. He's facing the man he defeated for the title, Alex Pereira. Immediate rematches are kind of weird because you don't have more tape to study, so you just gotta make conjectures out of the first fight. But we'll do that. We'll get into that. This event is also co-headlined by Merab Dvalishvili against Cory Sandhagen, defending his bantamweight title. So Sandhagen finally gets a shot at the UFC title. We have Merab, who is turning into a dominant champion, despite some kind of close fights in that round. But yeah, Merab hasn't lost in a while. I feel like Cory is actually a very compelling matchup, so I'm very excited about this one. When it comes to the rest of the pay-per-view, we have 14 fights here, I think. When it comes to the rest of the pay-per-view, I feel like this one is kind of top-heavy, especially when it comes to very relevant fights to the divisions. We have a few hidden gems down there as usual, but it's not the UFC at its best. But it's still a pretty decent. Is it a pretty decent pay-per-view? I feel like the main card is actually pretty good, I would say. And we have a few gems on the prelims as always, but I feel like this could be a bit more stacked, especially considering that we did not have any pay-per-views on September, right? So with that, why don't we get into the first fight of the night? The opener for this card is a flyweight bout between Veronica and Brogan Walker. Let's begin with Veronica here. Veronica is a stocky and dynamic taekwondo-based kickboxer. She establishes a long distance from southpaw, longer than her range actually, and from there she forces opponents to lead or she blitzes controlling the lead hand. She has powerful kicks and a solid straight left to the body that is a very good tool for her. She moves well on the outside and can circle both ways. Not much of a pocket boxer, but she throws with power if she's forced to exchange punches. Her defense relies on distance and control of the initiative. She mostly backs up, but can also duck for clinches and takedown attempts. She's good at parrying kicks and counter kicking as well. She's physically strong, has improved her takedown defense as her UFC career has progressed, and her submission game is pretty solid nowadays. One thing about Veronica is that she can run out of ideas as fights go on. Her cardio seems fine and toughness is a good attribute for her, but she can have trouble if she's stuck at boxing range or against good chained wrestlers. Against her, we have Brogan Walker, a well-rounded fighter and former finalist of The Ultimate Fighter. Walker fights out of a jumpy wide stance. Most of her actions are big. She's a decently dexterous kicker with both legs and will throw big punches before fading back. There's not a lot of depth to her boxing, but she's solid at managing distance and has some counter-punching ability. Her defense depends on leaning back and backing out of range a lot as her head movement is limited and she keeps her chin high at mostly all times. Proactive clinches add a layer of defense though. She's not a particularly strong wrestler, but she's willing to grind for takedowns attempts against the fence. Striking in transition and during scrambles is probably her strongest area, particularly with knees. She's also a serviceable grappler, but she's either controlling or striking during get-ups, not very good at finding a balance between damage and control. There's not a lot in the way of a submission game, but she's capable of finding the back in scrambles and has one rear naked choke victory to her record. She's very tough, but conditioning has been on and off in her late run. Despite her big actions, she lacks power to be threatening, and her middle-of-the-pack athleticism and lack of nuance hold her back. I would say that in this fight, Walker is pretty much outgunned here, as neither is a particularly nuanced boxer, and both rely on long-distance striking. Hardy is a more athletic and powerful kicker, and also the bigger, tighter puncher inside the pocket if it goes there. Walker might be able to do something if she sticks to Hardy and find knees in transition. But other than that, or finding like a big counter on the feet to take the fight down, I think her options are limited. I feel like the more dynamic Hardy, who also happens to be a more sophisticated striker and probably more physical during tie-ups, is the rightful favorite here. So my pick here is that Veronica Hardy will win a decision. After that, we move to the welterweight division, where we have a fight between Austin Vanderford and Ramiz Brahimaj. So let's begin with Ramiz Brahimaj, a wrestler boxer, decently athletic, can put his hands together and likes to pressure foes to the fence to work his wrestling. Improvements to his boxing has made him a bigger threat on the feet. He uses the jab to back people up and carries power on the right, and now has the ability to put compact combinations together. He has a penchant for shifting to find targets and does a good job of using his takedown threat to mask them. Shifts also help him with his kicking game, as he can sneak kicks from both sides to all three levels after shifting or to punctuate combinations. His footwork and ability to hide behind his lead shoulder have given him a newfound comfort inside the pocket. He can also grab proactive clinches to defend and will look for uppercuts, knees, and elbows during breaks. A strong wrestler against the fence, he mostly likes to drop levels from the clinch, connect his hands, and finish doubles against the fence. He's very good at taking the back or passing immediately after his takedowns, and he's very good at finishing the rear naked choke, but he's also dangerous with the arm triangle and the guillotine. He can be taken down, but usually works hard to get back to his feet. Submission defense has been very solid. One thing about Brahimaj is that he's not very big for the division, and his gas tank has historically been an issue. If his new comfort on the striking side has improved his gas tank, that remains to be seen. Against him, we have Austin Vanderford, a former collegiate wrestler. He fights out of a wide stance, looking to implement explosive in and out movement, keeping a long lead left hand and his right glued to his face. Constant level changes and lead shoulder feints allow him to control the initiative and time entries. He's the owner of a quick jab, and he also has big hooks from both hands that he likes to throw in tight after entries, and that makes up for most of his striking arsenal. Kicks from both legs and straight right complement his long range game. His defense consists of his solid spacing and hiding his chin well behind his lead shoulder and high guard, but head movement can be lacking during combinations and exits. Clinches and wrestling are a safety blanket when running out of defensive options. Vanderford has a very quick shot in open space that is complemented by his striking style. Double legs and a variety of single legs finishes mean he's hard to deny if he gets to the hips. But he's also a strong chain wrestler when faced with initial resistance. From top, Vanderford shines as he's a suffocating top control player with damaging ground and pound. Of note is his ability to land ground and pound from close guard and use strikes to open up passes. Has a solid flow chart from the arm triangle to keep control and force precarious positions. Not much of his defensive wrestling has been seen, but he's a strong scrambler with options to wrestle from multiple positions. Vanderford is well conditioned and tough, but he can be one note and stiff on the feet, which means he relies on his A game to win fights. So this is a fight between dangerous grapplers. Brahimaj is the more dynamic finishing threat, especially early, while Vanderford has shown a more consistent approach down the line. As I mentioned on the profiles, we don't know if the improvements of Ramiz striking will lead to a better gas tank or even a sustainable striking style. But I think it is safe to say that Brahimaj is the superior striker at this stage with better comfort and adaptability during exchanges, and also a bigger arsenal with more power at range. I don't think it is super likely that Brahimaj fight his early submission this time around, but his grappling early might be enough to neutralize or reverse Vanderford, especially if he gets impatient or forced into a bad takedown attempt because of the striking. I really want to believe uh, I really want to believe that Brahimaj is turning the page around and is winning this fight on the feet, but to be honest, I gotta see it to believe it. I think that Vanderford overcomes a tough first round to take over late. So my pick here is that Vanderford takes a decision. We stay at welterweight for our next fight. We have a fight between Punahele Soriano and Nikolay Veretennikov. So let's begin with Puna. an extreme couture wrestle boxer, Soriano has injected new life into his UFC career, moving down to 170 with 2 straight victories. He's an explosive southpaw or owner of a powerful left middle kick and a fight-ending threat with both hands. Puna likes to fight hands and prove with medium speed kicks before surprising with full power strikes. His level change feint helped him to pressure opponents back. Soriano, one thing about Soriano is that he likes the overhand over the straight left and he throws with insane power, man. Soriano can move his head decently well on the first layer and reactively, but he can become vulnerable during longer exchanges. He's good at catching and parrying kicks, and it helps to open up counter opportunities, and he likes striking opponents backing up with shifts with big punches. Soriano is a solid wrestler, a former collegiate wrestler, by the way. He has a quick shot in open space and can grind against the cage to finish singles and doubles. Despite his strength, he's efficient and clean with his finishes. From top, he's not much of a submission threat, but he's very good at landing big ground and pound from rights and static positions. He's also solid as a defensive wrestler. He can be surprised by shots in open space, but he has been hard to take down thanks to his mat wrestling ability and athleticism. Soriano is a good athlete who is durable and has decently well-rounded game with dangerous threats, but his confidence and gas tank have been very inconsistent throughout his career. One thing is that it seems like he can rely a lot more in his wrestling now that he's down at welterweight though. Against him we have Nikolay Veretennikov, a big and well-rounded athlete. The Kazakh fights out of a moderately wide tall stance and prefers a low-pace fight at open space. Lead hand, rear shoulder, and level change feints help him with walking down opponents as he looks for spots to open up. Veretennikov is more comfortable at kicking range, as he's a dexterous kicker with both legs who attacks with linear and roundhouse kicks to all 3 levels. A bit of a stiff puncher, he has a solid long jab and he can put the right hand behind it. He has a solid left hook and overhand right, both of which he can use to counter or to punish the circling of his opponents. He's at his most effective when he's walking forwards, using his kicks and the reaction he gets from them to find his punches. He tends to lose his footing during longer combinations though, and his head remains dead set on the center line during exchanges. He's solid defensively at range, as he moves in and out well and defense kicks at a good clip, evading, blocking, and catching. Defense inside the pocket is lacking though, as not only his head movement is scarce, but he tends to keep his chin high. His solid footwork patches this somewhat. Veretennikov is strong and decently technical inside the clinch. He's the owner of solid knees and is very hard to take down in bodylock situations, but his output is low. Despite his tall stance, his takedown defense is solid, as he has good hips and fight grips well, but he has been taken down while losing his stance moving forwards and has had trouble with nuanced chain wrestlers. Veretennikov is well-rounded and heavy-handed, but his gas tank is just average, and his low output means he doesn't control the initiative as much as he wants. This might play out as a wrestler versus striker, but I think it's on Puna's best interest to play his well-roundedness here. Veretennikov is the longer and more comfortable striker at range, and he can be hard to deal with inside the clinch, but his defense can be suspect, especially when backing up, and has been taken down in his last 2 fights. Those 2 things play straight into the Hawaiian's wheelhouse here. Conditioning will be key in this fight, as the first fighter to tire might expose his weakness to his opponent. A tired Soriano might become a punching bag for the Kazakh. On the flip side, a tired Veretennikov might not be able to deal with the wrestling of Soriano. While Veretennikov might have an advantage earlier as a more fluid striker, I think Soriano's power and wrestling combined with his newfound confidence in a better weight class from him will be enough to find him a path to victory. I think that Soriano finishes this fight via strikes on the 2nd round. We go to bantamweight and we have a fight between Patchy Mix and Jakub Wiklacz. So let's begin with Patchy Mix. A long, tall, kicky grappler. A southpaw, Patchy fights out of a tall stance, looking to establish a long range with roundhouse kicks and snap kicks to all 3 levels. He uses his lead hand to actively fight hands, looking to set up the outside angle for a kick or a long straight left. A quick jab, a wide counter right hook, and a powerful knees round up his range game. His ability to push off his kicks and knees has proven effective when pushing opponents back, in part thanks to his length. While not very nuanced defensively, his awareness with his foot positioning, good sense of distance, has allowed him to defend well, and his ability to block with his lead elbow, shoulder roll, and keep a high left hand make him hard to hit clean at range. But he is kickable to the legs and body and lacks head movement, especially when dealing with combinations. Level changes into clinches offer another layer of defense. Physically strong in the clinch, Mix is dangerous if he gets to a body lock, being able to complete a variety of takedowns, particularly if he can drag a leg to get to the back. He's also the owner of powerful knees during tie-ups, but he can lack activity, especially in open space. Mixed grappling is his A game, his guillotine is one of his winning conditions, and he can find it in the clinch and during transitions. Not only he has no trouble pulling guard with it, but he can also use it to control the opponents and sweep if he's not completely locked in. The back is another strong suit, being the owner of a technically solid rear naked choke, and he's very hard to shake from that position. Ground and pound during transition is also noteworthy, but he's more of a conservative control player if he gets an opponent flat off his back. Patchy is tough, well conditioned, and a threat everywhere. His lack of depth in striking and limited wrestling options are his biggest drawbacks. Against him, we have Jakub Wiklacz, a lanky and aggressive grappler. Wiklacz fights out of a tall stance, marches forward, putting on a high output of strikes. His piercing right front kick is probably his best strike and one of his most consistent tools. Strike punches and a variety of kicks and a willingness to train in the pocket contribute to the chaotic pace that he likes to establish. Wiklacz has a penchant for the rear strike right hook, for the rear right hook, excuse me, when he gets in close, which is someone that kind of has in common with Patchy. Patchy likes like a rear left hook as well. Head movement is a complete afterthought for Wiklacz. He relies on backing up and grabbing clinches for defense, but this is somewhat alleviated by his aggressiveness. He's also a tenacious wrestler. He will try to drag the fight to the ground from body locks or tight single legs. He doesn't have a lot of finesse to his technique, but he's insistent and creative to get the fight to the ground. From top position, he's heavy and dynamic with passes and will establish control before letting go with ground and pound. Half guard, side control, and mount are some of his strongest positions to eat the clock and inflict damage. The rear naked choke has been his go-to submission, but he also has shown threats with the front headlock and off his back. Talking about his guard game, Wiklacz is very aggressive from his back with submission attempts and is quick to use them to create scrambles. And his submission defense and overall scrambling abilities are very good. Well conditioned and very tough, Wiklacz is no stranger to overcoming adversity. He's big, aggressive, and has a clear win condition, but he lacks depth to key areas and his striking defense is suspect. This is a bit of a mirror match between like long strikers who want to take the fight to the ground. Neither is a fantastic wrestler, but Mix is the more immediate submission threat if it hits the ground. Wiklacz has an advantage in the form of his pace and aggression. Patchy Mix usually likes a slower paced fight and might fall behind if he doesn't fight big moments. Wiklacz is also more likely than most to survive sketchy moments if he gets taken down as a high level scrambler and very hard to submit. Patchy Mix seems to be the more sophisticated and damaging striker here, and is likely to have a size and physicality advantage as well. And he's probably the better wrestler in an MMA context to boot. I think this one plays out mostly on the feet, and while the volume from the pole might trouble Patchy during some moments, I feel like the American will control the pace with his bigger and cleaner shots, plus a more dangerous wrestling threat, so I think here that Patchy Mix wins a decision. We stay at bantamweight actually, but for the ladies, as we have a fight between Macy Chiasson and Yana Santos. So let's begin with Chiasson. A big and long for the weight class, Chiasson has a preference to move on the outside behind her length, but her game is all about pace. Be it putting volume at range with straight punches and a variety of kicks, or grabbing clinches and using her frame to find knees, or employing a grindy wrestling attack. Chiasson never lacks output or effort. A switch stance kickboxer, Chiasson will look for jabs and front kicks from both stances to maximize her length, but she's not afraid to try and counter foes closing the distance with intercepting elbows, knees, or hooks. She relies a lot on distance to remain safe, but can time level changes to collapse the distance and find clinches well. Her movement and preference for moving on the outside have left her vulnerable to leg kicks though. And her punching mechanics are loopy, so she can be beat by straighter shots down the middle. When she moves forward, she's more effective offensively, but her defensive flaws become more apparent. In the clinch, she's strong, but she has trouble blending striking and wrestling, getting too keen on a single idea. A grindy wrestler, Shahbazyan is willing to take bad shots on the outside to drive opponents to the cage and work takedowns there, and she can finish through the legs or with upper body attacks. Her finishes are not the most technical, but being strong and insistent goes a long way, especially in this division. Her bad shots can leave her vulnerable on bottom position though, and while she's a solid scrambler, she has gotten in trouble with submissions during transitions. Cardio and toughness are good qualities, a lack of polish and intentionality probably her biggest flaws. Against her we have Diana Santos, a volume kickboxer. Santos likes to operate at open space, at the edge of kicking range, behind her feints, looking to close the distance with blitzy combinations. She has a good array of strikes and puts combinations together well, attacking all three levels. She keeps a decent pace and uses her solid jab to space his spots for entries. Santos is willing to answer with volume when pushed back. Her right hand is kinda yanky, but has enough pop on her hands to demand respect and is a solid kicker. Yana is not a super nuanced defensive fighter, but she remains aware of counters inside the pocket and can move her head off centerline with her punches. She's at her most vulnerable when pushed back or when having to defend during prolonged exchanges. Santos is also adept at turning hooks into collar ties, and she does her most damaging work inside the clinch in the form of knees and elbows. Takedown defense has been solid, if not outstanding. Santos makes good use of her footwork and strikes inside the clinch to get free during tie-ups. Grappling is also serviceable, but a step down from her striking. All in all, Santos is physical, well-conditioned, and reliable, but she lacks an X factor to make her dangerous and can also lack adaptability. Santos, with her volume, takedown defense, and combinations, could potentially be troublesome for Shahbazyan. Shahbazyan does come into the fight as the longer fighter and also the more versatile one. The big problem for the American here is that she can lack direction and she might lose minutes trying to score takedowns. The Russian has sturdy takedown defense and does her best work inside the clinch. That being said, it is unlikely that Shahbazyan concedes to have the fight that Santos wants, unless she's winning at that range, which is not impossible. I think Shahbazyan can frustrate Santos with her movement, compete with her volume, and potentially flip the script with a takedown, so I think that Macy Shahbazyan takes a decision here. And we stay at bantamweight because we have a fight between Farid Basharat and Chris Gutierrez. I think I'm missing some pictures. Yes, I'll fix that in a moment. But let's get into this fight. Farid Basharat, a switch stance kickboxer and wrestler, big and athletic. Basharat is mostly an outfighter, and he's a bit more focused on the kicks than his brother Javid. He still makes use of a good jab to control the pace, and he will let go with a sharp 1-2, a wide overhand off the level change, or a counter left hook. But he does the bulk of his damage with his quick kicks to all three levels, and with variety in the form of front snap kicks and question mark kicks from both sides. Farid is constantly circling on the outside and fading, and that helps him with setting up his spinning attacks, having a dangerous spinning back fist, and stabbing a spinning back kick to the body. Other than good distance management, Javid has also good cagecraft, and while he relies on circling wide a bit too much as opposed to tight pivoting, he's hard to pressure. He's also good at framing and hiding behind his lead shoulder when moving back, and he's not afraid to crash the distance to find clinches or level changes into takedowns when things get sketchy. On top of that, he's a decent kick catcher and checker. A mix of feints and good combination boxing could be concerning for his lack of nuanced head movement though. A good wrestler, grappler, and overall transition fighter, despite fighting from a long range and his long frame, Basharat has a quick level change and good setup for his entries, using the reaction to his kicks well to step through, and is the owner of a good reactive shot when pushed back as well. He's a good chain wrestler, both in open space and against the fence, be it with his double and single leg series, or with trips from the clinch against the fence. And he has solid ground pound even from close guard, with good posturing and good punches and elbows. From his back, he's good at using knee shields and butterfly hooks to create space and get back up, or he can find a single to wrestle up. Well conditioned and tough, Basharat has the most trouble when stuck in a single area defending, as his game revolves too much around transitions and his lack of depth in certain areas can be exploitable. Against him we have Chris Gutierrez, my boy. A long kickboxer, Gutierrez is a switch stance hitter who specializes in leg kicks, able to kick both legs from both stances. To make this work, he controls the initiative with outside movement, constant fading, and a stiff jab that all works in his favor of his kicking game. Gutierrez has excellent timing and can afford to land numerous kicks at range for free with little setup, despite having good setup for his kicks on top of it. The long distance he establishes is also useful to land counters with his hands. Stepping knees and spinning attacks give him variety and potential for big damage. Gutierrez is not a pocket boxer, but he's a counter threat moving back and has decent power even when fading back. His footwork is very solid while he can tend to sidestep wide. He can hit tight pivots when needed, and he has good cage awareness. Other than spacing, he's also good at using his jab, parries, and blocks to defend, but his head movement can be lacking, especially when pushed back. Inside the clinch, he's strong and is the owner of heavy knees and will look for big elbows during breaks. Wrestling defense has been inconsistent for Gutierrez. At times, he complements his effective anti-wrestling tactics with solid grip fighting in open space or against the fence. Other times, he can be inactive or slow to react. Gutierrez is a good BJJ grappler, but his big problem is that he's too willing to play off his back. He possesses a good arsenal of submission and sweeps, but he's not the quickest in setting the map, losing time conceding top position. Gutierrez has a thoughtful, well put together game with a clear win condition, but has the wrong priorities in some areas and seems to be confidence dependent to get going, and this holds him back big time. This is a battle between kickers, but with Basharat having the wrestling advantage on top of it. Gutierrez is the more nuanced and damaging kicker at open space, but Basharat can compete with range and his own jab, while having a more comfortable variety afforded to him by his grappling superiority. I feel like Javid is more vulnerable to Farid, excuse me, Farid, not Javid. Farid is more vulnerable to Gutierrez calf kicks than Gutierrez is to any of his buried attacks. But the big elephant in the room is the wrestling. Gutierrez is not a boy when it comes to wrestling, but he's prone to making big mistakes and end up on his back. Basharat is dominant from top position, and I don't see Gutierrez getting up, and if he does it, it won't be damage free. Gutierrez might get something done if he lands like damaging leg kicks early, but it's way more probable than Farid can mute his offense with his variety and wrestling threat before landing key takedowns. Guti has been very hard to finish, but I think that Basharat will get a submission in round 3 here. Next up, we have a featherweight fight between Daniel Willycat Santos and Yu Sang Yu. So let's begin with Willycat, a classic Diego Lima shooter box pressure fighter. He moved up to featherweight in his last fight and seems dangerous and durable in this new weight class. A well-rounded threat that likes to walk people down with some similar tools of that of his teammate Charles Oliveira, using long front kicks, powerful roundhouses, flying knees, and spinning attacks to push people back to the fence, where he can swarm opponents with combinations, grab clinches, or shoot for a takedown. A decent boxer, Willycat packs pop in both hands, and is a threat with straight hooks and uppercuts that he can put together in meaningful combinations. His pressuring footwork is solid, and he can track circling opponents with leg kicks or long straight punches. His head movement can be lacking, especially during his own combinations, as he likes to rely on his high guard, and he has been susceptible to strikes from his opponent's left side, particularly high kicks. His counter punching skills and his ability to parry punches and catch kicks while moving forwards mean he's not defensively helpless. He's also a solid wrestler. Santos is not afraid to change levels, and he's quick with his shot, be it in open space or against the fence. As most Diego Lima students, he's strongest from the clinch with a variety of trips, lifts, and hip tosses. His takedown defense is solid, and he's usually only taken down when opening up with big strikes. From the bottom, he's an active grappler, threatening with his triangle armbar series and transitioning to leg locks to create space to stand up or reverse position. And from top, he has very solid base with good ground and pound, and will threaten with back takes and front headlock chokes during transitions. Durability and cardio are good qualities from him, and like I mentioned, this was seemingly amplified since moving to featherweight. His one-note approach used to be an issue, but he showed flexibility in his form of applying pressure in his last fight. He's likely to struggle with the length and thighs of bigger, well-rounded 145ers, though. Against him, we have Yu Sang-yu, an athletic, confident, and well-rounded fighter. Yu fights from an upright wide stance, and he mostly likes to counter while pressuring. He stacks people behind leg kicks, looking to fade back or slip into big shots. His straight right hand is also an excellent counter to distant triggers. There's not a lot of depth to his counter punching, but his spacing and reflexes are very good, and he utilizes feints well to draw attacks out. His reliance on backing up when unsure about what's coming and combination work against his pressure though, but he's weak to resume. He's strong in the clinch. He's a physical presence and an opportunistic takedown artist in there, but he can be stalled and is not very active with strikes. His stance has exposed him to takedowns in the past, especially when he's too focused on his pressure, but he has shown to be a solid defensive grappler. He remains responsible and has good timing for reversals. Solid offensively too, he has good posture and passes from top, and he's the owner of very accurate ground and pound. Sadly, he hasn't been able to put the control and ground and pound together so far, but he has also shown the ability to chase the back, having a weird via rear naked choke. Yu has a lot of potential, but his conditioning is a question mark and his lack of experience and depth could be problematic. So, Wiklacz here faces yet another South Korean prospect after his fight with Du Hoshoi fell apart. Instead, he gets Zombie Jr. here in his sophomore effort inside the octagon. There's still a lot of question marks around Yu, but he's well-rounded and big. That's very important here. Coupled with his counter-punching ability, this could be very dangerous for another size fighter looking to close the gap. At the same time, Santos brings speed and more importantly well-roundedness of his own that Yu hasn't seen yet. To be honest, I was really expecting to go with Santos here, but the fact that he's undersized, kicks naked a lot from range, and the fact that Yu is not likely to get grappled like his countryman in Santos' last fight, all of that makes me side with the Korean here. So I'm going to take a risk here. Instead of going with the proven product, I'm going to pick Yu to win a decision. We have a middleweight fight next between Edmen Shahbazyan and Andre Muniz. So let's get into Shahbazyan, a kickboxer. Shahbazyan has speed, clean mechanics, and a good eye for openings. He fights behind a long jab, sliding in and out of range with the help of feints, looking to set up power punches or big kicks. Shahbazyan is at his best moving forwards, putting short combinations together or drawing up entries to counter. He packs power on both hands and both legs, usually finishing fights with his right hand or his left high kick. A solid left hook roundhouses to the legs and body, and punishing front kicks round up the rest of his ranged game. Shahbazyan has good footwork and can proactively move his head, but can be inconsistent with his defense. Physically strong and athletic, Shahbazyan is not a clinch specialist, but he pummels well and can land heavy knees and big punches during breaks. His defensive wrestling has improved over the years and is pretty sturdy, especially on the first layer, and his scrambling and overall grappling are solid too, but can be prone to bad decisions during key moments. Overall, Shahbazyan is very well put together, technical and dangerous, but it seems like he has mostly patched his cardio issues of the past, but he's very confidence dependent, inconsistent, even inside fights, and prone to lose focus. That mixed with suspect decision making at times limit his potential. Against him we have Andre Muniz, a BJJ specialist. Muniz fights long at range from his southpaw stance. He's mechanically janky but packs power and speed and has a good eye for openings. He's active with the lead hand, fighting hands, or trying to jab to set up the left. He gets surprised with uppercuts from both sides and will tend to shift to try to punish linear retreats. Muniz is also not afraid to look for counters when moving back, and while this can expose him, he can surprise with sneaky shots. His aggressive volume serves to patch his sketchy defense. He relies a lot on backing up and lacks head movement in a major way. Big for the weight class, Muniz is strong in the clinch, but doesn't have a deep striking or wrestling game there. His level change into takedowns is surprisingly fast though, and his ability to lock his hands translate into a lot of successful takedowns. While Muniz is very solid as a grappler and can maintain top control while landing damage, he shines with his armbar series. He can land them from the back, from his back, from top position, or when taking the back, and it is like his go-to submission most of the time. Muniz is tough and can keep a decent pace, but his lack of nuance on the striking and his janky mechanics remain his biggest flaws. Shahbazyan has a bad rep for losing to grapplers, but he has a single submission loss on his record. Let's consider that. Muniz, on the other hand, is 1-3 in his last 4, and haven't been able to work his armbar magic as of late. To be fair to Muniz, he has been fighting high-level grapplers, all of them probably better than Shahbazyan in that round. He still has a dangerous takedown in open space, which might be his saving grace here. But the Armenian is hard to take down in open space without chain wrestling, and I think he will be able to keep this one upright. And if that's the case, I gotta favor him as a cleaner and more threatening striker. Muniz might be able to push a pace to get Shahbazyan tired or doubting himself, but I think Edmen will be able to control the pace with his long range tools and footwork to find a TKO in round 2. We stay at middleweight for our featured bout of the prelims as Gutierrez fights a newcomer to the UFC, Treston Bynes. So Gutierrez, a big and athletic striker, he's calm and collected most of the time on the feet. He's a bit stiff and still raw, but but he throws with good technique, making his reach count and keeping his weight under him. His jab and 1-2s are quick and straight, and he often changes levels with them, looking for spots to open up. His right hand, big left hook, and switch left high kicks are his most dangerous weapons, and he has good eyes, timing, and sense of rhythm to find them. Knees to the body and head are also a great asset for him. He can step with them from range, or he can counter with them grabbing collar ties. Gautier is responsible with his feet, controls distance well, and often pivots after his combinations to keep himself safe. Head movement is limited, but he has some ideas about shoulder rolling and blading his stance with the left hook before retreating. He's very physically strong. Gautier is dangerous with his aforementioned knees inside the clinch, but he mostly uses his physicality to stay upright, in conjunction with good footwork to circle out and open up during clinch breaks. Wrestling is still a work in progress. His strength can bail him out, especially if he gets to the fence, but he makes mistakes addressing grips during chain wrestling sequences. He's the owner of a monstrous sprawl when he gets the timing right, though. From his back, he has looked limited the few times that he has been taken down, but he stays calm and safe, looking for spots to get back up, usually while walking against the fence. Despite being a very explosive athlete and big for the division, Gautier is surprisingly efficient with his movement. This coupled with his ability to not panic during exchanges and when taken down, and it seems like his cardio will hold up at least fine. The sky's the limit for the Cameroonian, but he's still very raw, and there's a lot of questions about him against the higher tiers of the division. And the highest tier of the division, this is not. Not to be mean to Treston Bynes here, but let's get into Treston Bynes. There's not a lot of current tape on him. His last few fights are not available on the internet. Bynes has taken fights at both 170 and 185. He seems decently athletic and well-rounded, and seems to have a preference to move on the outside and attack with leg kicks. He has some counters on the back foot and can put together punch-kick combinations together well. And he likes to make things up with takedowns, usually trying to move opponents into shots. He doesn't have a super deep level change, but he can attack with double legs or knee taps when surprising foes. Knees during transitions are another strong point for him. And he looks solid from top position. He usually likes to get to a mount back take change up to work round and pound or work his rear naked choke. Bynes looks solid, bad limited footage, and his level of competition make him a big question mark, and he has been knocked out in the past. So Treston Bynes steps up in short notice against rising Gautier. Bynes has made 170 in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if he finds himself with a big size disadvantage here. He's a decent athlete who likes to move on the outside, and the takedowns could be his saving grace in this fight. But sadly, his style plays straight into Gutierrez, who loves to unload next to the cage with his huge power. I think it is very unlikely, from what I've seen, that Bynes can find consistent takedowns, and he usually plays straight into the A game of the Cameroonian, as I said. So the obvious pick here is that Gutierrez wins via first round knockout. We stay at middleweight to open up the main card, and we have a fight between Joe Pyfer and Abus Magomedov. So no profiles here, just getting to the fight. The thing about this fight is that neither guy has a great gas tank here. Abus is the more resourceful of the two, with a bigger selection of tools, but Pyfer is more focused on what he does well. Both guys lose dynamism as fight goes on. Magomedov might have an advantage kicking from range. He has more arsenal. He has a variety of kicks. He has the takedowns. Um, he might have like more punches too, maybe. But he gotta be careful inside the pocket with Pyfer because Pyfer is like a huge hitter. We know this. Going for back takedowns, especially for Magomedov, could be a very bad idea. Like it might get him tired. Pyfer is dangerous from top position. He trains with very good grapplers. I feel like tactics-wise, a long fight would favor Abus here, as he should be able to find ideas that work on the long run, as opposed to Pyfer, who only becomes like a lesser version of himself during third rounds. Well, that's what we have seen so far. Even against Kelvin Gastelum in a fight that he was in control, that he was hurting Kelvin, he was like getting less and less effective as the fight went on. But the gas tank is the issue. I mean, for maybe for both, but for Magomedov for executing this, right? Uh, the thing is that Pyfer drops output and becomes like a bit sloppier, but he retains power and doesn't like fall apart. He just like gets worse. Abus Magomedov has improved his gas tank, but he suffers like technical degradation when he gets tired, man. Like he starts like falling apart technically. Like just go watch like the Mitchell Pereira fight. A fight in which he won because he fought another gasser there, but yeah, Bus gets sloppy, and you don't want to really want to get sloppy against Pyfer. Even if Pyfer like loses a lot of his popping his punches, he's still like mechanically tight. He can still hurt you, and even if he doesn't hurt you, like he will be landing like the very shots. Um, I feel like obviously Abus has like the kicks, has like the wrestling options, but I feel like they don't match up like super bad against Pyfer. Like doesn't give him a lot of advantages. Like kicking at range might be a better idea than trying to wrestle here for a boost. Uh, Pyfer, Pyfer is long and he can defend kicks, but I feel like you can stock him at range if you like kick well enough. But like, can a boost actually like kick for 15 minutes? I feel like Abus is going to be like finding good ideas, but then like Pyfer is just going to be more solid, more composed, man. Like Pyfer is not great. He doesn't make like big adjustments, but like his meat and potatoes are good enough to beat most of the division, and I feel like that plays out here. He's more composed. He's probably like, even if he's not all that, I feel like he's a bit more like mentally tough than a boost too. So yeah, man. I wish a boost could win here. I feel like he's a more interesting fighter. Like Joe Pyfer, like he's Joe Pyfer, but yeah, I feel like Joe Pyfer wins here. Abus has been hard to finish in the UFC though, so I'm picking Pyfer by decision. That's the pick here. We go back to featherweight for our next one, as we have a fight between Josh Emmett and Yusuf Zalal. So Zalal gets to try his outfighting style once again against an aging staple of the featherweight rankings. But to be fair here, Emmett, despite some losses in recent memory, has been looking way better than Kelvin Cater. Emmett is coming off a loss against Alarum Murphy that took the back foot in their last outing. While Murphy is very resourceful and came prepared with good tactics to exploit the limitations of Emmett when he pressures, Zalal is more of a natural mover and is probably less likely to fight as much of the fight against the fence as Little Murphy. And Zalal also has the advantage of fighting like a longer style, with his jab, variety of kicks, and his dangerous knees to dissuade level changes. Zalal is a less nuanced pocket boxer than Murphy though, and if Emmett convinces him to exchange, he might be in trouble. For Zalal, the key is to keep moving, move Emmett into shots, and keep him at the end of his range. For Emmett, I feel like bodywork is very likely to pay off, but Emmett has never been a super consistent body puncher. But it would be great here because like the body is a bigger target, has the potential to limit Zalal's mobility in the long run. We still gotta remember that despite still looking pretty much like himself, Emmett is 40 years old though. A drop off out of nowhere wouldn't be unheard of here. But like we're going to assume that he's going to look like himself. Another thing to consider here is that Zalal should be a fool if he starts like coasting on the third round. If he wins the first two, like he did against Cater, because that was disastrous. Like it was not only boring. The only times that he was like getting hit by Cater wasn't that third round when he was coasting, man. He was like winning that fight so wide. He just needed to keep doing what he was doing, man. If he starts playing those stupid games against Emmett, he might win stupid prizes, man. And I mean getting knocked out here. Emmett only needs one mistake, but he's facing a complicated matchup, man. I mean, Zalal might not be like the brutal long range kicker that Jair Rodriguez is, or he's not the cerebral adaptable fighter that Lerone Murphy is either. But he's a bit of a middle ground, I think. He does have a good number of tools to engage and damage at distance with his jab and kicks. And also, another thing that Zalal has going for him is that I don't think that Zalal is going to be able to take Emmett down consistently here. But the fact that he's a pretty decent wrestler and he can tank takedowns might save his ass if he gets like clipped and kind of hurt. Emmett is not like insanely dangerous from top. He can kill you with ground pound, but he's not very good at like getting to controlling positions. Zalal's pretty good off his back. So I feel like that's an extra safety blanket that it's good to have for Zalal. He might like save himself. I feel like Zalal might get like clipped one or twice, like not getting super hurt, but like feeling the shots. But other than that, I feel like he's going to navigate the waters here like decently well. I'm picking Yusuf Zalal to win a decision here. Next one is at light heavyweight. We have a bout between Jiri Prochazka and Khalil Rountree Jr. So, while Rountree put on a slow but still dominant performance last time out against Jamal Hill, I think it is very unlikely that Jiri will allow him that pace in this fight. That being said, I feel like this is a dangerous fight for Jiri. Khalil might just vaporize him with a counter, but it's also very likely to destroy his legs before even that happens. On the flip side though, Jiri might be exactly the kind of fighter that like psychs Khalil Rountree out and puts him out of his game. Uh, Jiri also comes into the fight with a decent height and reach advantage. His head in particular might be hard to hit for the American here. Uh, let's be clear here. Jiri Prochazka's defense is not perfect, but he has good eyes and has good reflexes. And like the extra distance that he will be afforded here by the difference of height and reach tells me that he will be able to evade the roll with a lot of the shots from Rountree. Let's remember that Rountree had a lot of trouble closing the distance against like Pereira. And Pereira, like, he sticks you with the jab, he keeps you like outside. But he's not like a defensive mastermind. He was like just backing up, and Jiri is a lot more like proactive with his movement than Pereira. I mean, Pereira is more like move side to side here and like maybe do a like a small like lean back. While Jiri like just loves to give this illusion of being like closer to you, like putting his head over his knee, and he has like a lot of room to pull back from there. I feel like, I mean, that's playing with fire, right? But Jiri will had a lot of chances to like make Rountree miss a lot. I feel like if Rountree wants to find Jiri, especially to the head, he's a lot more likely to find him in the counter, especially if he limits the mobility of Jiri with leg kicks first. But we have to remember that for as technical as Rountree fought last time out, we gotta remember that Rountree is a pretty janky fighter. Especially the big rainbow overhands that he throw, that can get you in trouble. Like, you don't want to be swinging at air and putting yourself out of position against Prochazka. Like Jiri, for all the jank that he himself has, he's a dangerous counter puncher, man. Like, you don't want to be like throwing silly shit and putting yourself in a bad position in front of Jiri. Jiri has good instincts. He's going to take your head. And if the fight like gets silly because like if Jiri like has like a compromised leg like it happened against Rakic, he's going to try to create chaos. And I don't think like that Khalil Rountree has the tools to like dissipate chaos. He's going to buy into it. Like, like Khalil wants to bang in his heart. And if they bang, like obviously Khalil can kill him with a counter. He can fight a huge right hand, a left hook. I mean a huge left hand or right hook. Yes, he's a southpaw here. But but man, you don't want to have like chaotic firefight with Jiri Prochazka, man. Like Jiri can die. Like Jiri is human. We've seen him like getting finished, especially by Poatan 2 times. But do you really want to have like a insanely stupid fight? Like, I don't feel like Rountree is like a super good pocket boxer either. I feel like Jiri is probably better there. Jiri, that's where he thrives. He's himself in those situations. I feel like Rountree wants to have like a more calculated fight. Have like exchange to exchange more than like extending things. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, if it gets sloppy, like, I feel like Rountree is going to fall apart technically, while Jiri is going to be Jiri. I feel like a big part of this fight comes down to the ability of Rountree to compromise the legs of Jiri, like, super early. But because if he doesn't, I feel like Jiri will eventually find something, man. Feels a bit of a flip coin. I feel like there's very good reasons to pick Khalil Rountree, but the more I imagine, like, even if he lands like some good leg kicks or he hurts Jiri, it's going to devolve into a firefight at one moment. And while I feel like Khalil Rountree can win a firefight against anyone, I'm not sure I would pick him to win this firefight. It would not surprise me, but if I have to pick, I think I have to go with Jiri, man. I'm picking Jiri via third round knockout here. And we're back at bantamweight. We have a fight for the title here as champion Merab Dvalishvili defends against Cory Sandhagen. So I feel like let's get out of the way. This fight will be largely decided or dictated at least by Merab's ability to use his wrestling to disturb Cory's striking, force him into scrambles, and keep him down. Cory on his part wants to either like isolate the striking or be the more damaging fighter during transitions, which is not like unlikely to be honest. While I have criticized John Wood's approach when it comes to Merab in the past, he has improved his comfort as a striker in open space, that's undeniable. Merab nowadays has better mechanics, more defensive options. Sandhagen, though, is a better mover on the outside than O'Malley, and he's less likely to fall apart when faced with the takedown threat. One interesting aspect of this fight is that we can trace parallels for both with their common opponent in Umar Nurmagomedov. Merab is similar to Umar for Cory in the sense that he's the superior grappler with a tendency to blitz and can mute the Americans' offense, while Sandhagen plays the role for Umar for Merab as the longer, quicker, cleaner striker with good scrambling abilities. Merab was able to beat Umar mostly via being competitive enough in the grappling to force Umar into working, and therefore outlasting him as the fight went long. well, that was like the way Merab beat Umar. On the other hand, Umar meets Sandhagen via reducing his output and controlling the initiative with his wrestling advantage, forcing him into a low output kickboxing fight. The key differences here are that Sandhagen is not likely to gas like Umar, and Merab is neither the long range striker or controlling grappler in the mat that Magomedov is. So it's not as simple as doing MMA math and assuming that Merab wins because Merab beat Umar, Umar beat Sandhagen. I think we have like very clear differences here that make the matchup difference. And I feel like Cory might be able to exploit some advantages that he has better than Umar, especially considering the gas tank, right? I think output in this fight will be very important for both fighters. Cory is not a fighter who will implode off his zone. If Merab wants to break him, he needs to go at him since the beginning. But Merab has been starting fights a lot slower lately and for a while now. And he's a lot pickier when it comes to pushing the wrestling as well. Sandhagen himself cannot fall in the trap he did against Nurmagomedov. While I'm confident he will win most minutes on the feet if it's slow, he cannot risk losing rounds to singular big moments because he didn't do enough for the rest of the round. When it comes to the grappling, I would say that Merab is a superior stand-up wrestler than Umar, a comparable scrambler, but inferior on the mat and as a top position grappler. The timing of Merab has gotten better, and he's a threat against defense and in open space. But historically, Merab has struggled to combine damage and control, even against the likes of Sean O'Malley in the first fight. We'll see if there was like a big improvement in Merab in that area, or if it was like O'Malley not showing up in that last fight. Sandhagen on his part has been historically very hard to control on the mat, especially by shorter fighters. Aljamain Sterling and Umar were able to secure dominant positions, but they are very good at controlling, and two, they have very long limbs to deal with the scrambling options that are afforded to Sandhagen by his length. It is during scrambling and static positions where Sandhagen can potentially present problems to Merab, as Merab can eat the clock grinding, and Cory can win those minutes back with damage, while the Georgian is attempting to secure control. It is Sandhagen's ability to damage in transition, his fierce layer scrambling, and superiority at range that make me side with him at the end. Merab moving his offense on the feet to eventually get meaningful takedowns that lead to damage, or even opening up big shots on the feet is not out of the question, but his lack of consistent ways to do damage when facing an opponent with a good gas tank uh, is, I feel, is that what going to cost Merab here? I'm taking a risk here. I think that Cory Sandhagen becomes the new bantamweight champion, and he does so by decision. And with that, we move to light heavyweight for our main event. We have a rematch for the 205 strap. Champion Magomed Ankalaev rematches a former champion Alex Pereira. So we have Ankalaev versus Pereira 2. So immediate rematches, predictions always come to a lot of suppositions since we haven't seen action from the fighters involved since. On the first fight, we saw that Ankalaev was able to exploit uh, and leverage his speed and southpaw stance with a couple of good tactics to beat Poatan. Pereira was surprisingly unreluctant to engage for prolonged periods of the fight. Whether it came to the takedown threat, Ankalaev's movement and feints, or just an off night on the offense remains to be find out here. I mentioned a lot of these tactics back in my post-fight analysis, but Ankalaev did bring stuff to the table to make Pereira uncomfortable. He was ready to both check kicks and fight hands, neutralizing Pereira's jab and leg kicks, which are his primary long-distance tools. And he also exploited the square stance of the Brazilian, with bodywork in the form of front kicks and straight punches. And finally, he also exploited the shoulder roll of Pereira, attacking his right side with looping shots. Pereira showed career best takedown defense, to his credit, and was able to stay upright for the whole fight, even outmaneuvering Ankalaev with a foot sweep at one moment. But Ankalaev was able to eat the clock and be the more damaging fighter while keeping Pereira's back against the fence for most of round 4. When it comes to adjustments, Pereira obviously needs to be more aggressive here, and the success of his takedown defense in fight 1 might give him the confidence to do so. He also better come prepared with better tactics to set up and land the jab, either that or build a kicking game of the hand fight. If he's able to push Ankalaev back with his jab to the fence, he might get the exchanges that he wants to land a powerful counter. If he gets the champion more reactive, he might also be able to land his leg kicks more effectively to reduce the mobility and compromise the Russian. I'm very curious to see if Ankalaev will try more takedown attempts this time around, maybe trying to get Pereira down in open space, or if he will be more willing to just clinch against the fence, considering the success he had there when he decided to do it in the first fight. It might have not been entertaining, but he was able to restrain Pereira while laying the knees, not only controlling, but winning the damage equation. Pereira being more aggressive doesn't immediately win him this fight though. As we saw in the first fight, Ankalaev is capable of hurting him, and he's also a counter puncher. So he might open himself to like bigger counters, maybe takedowns. But I feel like that's a risk that he needs to take. More aggressive and focused Pereira always has the chance of putting anyone's lights out. Pereira, I think, also needs like a higher output with kicks to open up like boxing opportunities. While Ankalaev was calculated and he did make big entries often, he needs to be careful on the distance with distance triggers, because like if Pereira catch him like shifting into range, he might put Ankalaev out. And Ankalaev was playing with fire, like with those shifting entries. He was like making sure that Pereira was reacting before shifting, but there's still a risk there. I feel like the thing that holds Pereira back in the matchup is that if he is open up too much, he might be taken down. And even if he doesn't get taken down, like he might start like being more reserved again. And with low output, I feel like this is Ankalaev's fight to win. Ankalaev like has the big equalizer here on being like a complete mixed martial artist. He's a puncher, he's a kicker, he's a takedown artist, and he has like the tools to deal with the strengths of Poatan. Poatan, we know he can adapt, but he's still like a finished product. Like he's going to bring like different versions of the fighter that he already is. But that doesn't mean that he's not able to adapt, right? Like he can bring like a different skill set here. But we know how Alex Potan Pereira fights. He's not going to like super surprise here, but a few key adjustments might do a lot for him. But I think that at the end of the day, like Ankalaev is quick, he's mobile. He makes Pereira uncomfortable with the southpaw, with the speed, with the takedown threat. You know, all those things are in Pereira's head. And it's that coupled too with the thing that Ankalaev is like. Ankalaev is not the athlete that Pereira is. He's not as big, but he's like kind of around there, right? Like Ankalaev is a very good athlete and he's pretty big. So it's not Pereira like playing with the small kids anymore or like with slower guys. Ankalaev is the younger guy that moves quick, hits hard, and it has like the takedown in the back of Pereira's mind. Even if Pereira was able to defend the takedowns, he was not like able to super open up because he knows like he leaps into a big left hook like an idiot and presents his hips, he might get taken down. I mean, if he gets taken down, like I've said before, Pereira has like better grappling that he gets credit for. I feel like the wrestling was the biggest problem, but he was able to use his size and strength to keep it upright. But having Ankalaev Ankalaev on top is different, man. One thing is to have like a Jan Blachowicz that is just trying to eat the clock on top. And another thing is to have Ankalaev, man. Ankalaev has like nasty ground and pound, has very good posture. He is another level of the position compared to like a Jan Blachowicz. Like Ankalaev is going to fuck you up, especially if you're not a beginner, but not a like an actual grappler on the ground like Pereira is. So yeah, I feel like it all conspires. Like Pereira obviously can always nuke, but we're here to pick the fight, and I think that Ankalaev is going to win a decision again. So that's going to be my final pick. Oh, I didn't. I just took the same picture twice, like an idiot. But yeah, imagine that there's Ankalaev by decision here. So yeah, I'm picking that one, and that's the podcast, you guys. Um, it's the top four fights are pretty good. Maybe I'm not my favorite title fight like Ankalaev versus Pereira 2, but Ankalaev showed up like big time on the first fight. I'm kind of intrigued to see if Pereira can adapt this second time around. I don't feel like he's a super adaptable fighter, but he does have some tricks. He might give some different looks this time around. And it's also like interesting to see what Ankalaev is going to do. Maybe he's going to go like harder at the tactics that worked the first time around. Maybe he will try to wrestle more. I'm intrigued a little bit. It's the co-main event is actually like the big fight here. I'm super excited to see if Cory Sandhagen can pull it off. I'm obviously picking him to do it, but you never know, right? I'm picking him to fight a very good fight, but you can never count on MMA fighters to fight a very good fight. And of course, Hagen has been like weirdly inconsistent within his newfound consistency, which is like a sounds like a bunch of nonsense, but I feel like you guys know what I'm saying. That he has fought with like very different approaches because he has turned into this neutralizer kind of guy. But I feel like he can, if he shows up with the right game plan here, he can win this fight for sure. And Merab is obviously very winnable for Merab. Like Merab is one of the best bantamweights, so he's the champion for a reason. Then we have like action guaranteed in Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree, so no one is going to complain about that. And Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Zalal. Maybe Emmett has seen better days, but it's like a very compelling fight against an outfighter always in Zalal because Zalal will be playing with fire in that one. So the top four are very good. What other fights in the card I'm like looking forward to? Brahimaj versus Vanderford is fun because like Brahimaj is usually like the grappler, but he's going to be like the boxer in this fight, I feel. And Vanderford is very fun to watch, and he will be fighting a good grappler in Brahimaj in this one. So I'm curious to see how the wrestling, the scrambles go. Maybe Brahimaj can box him up. That one is going to be good, most likely. Soriano versus Veretennikov has a chance to be decent. Might get into sloppy territory though. Patchy Mix versus Jakub Wiklacz, man. I was not like super confident in this one being good, but the more I think about it, it is going to be like sloppy fun if it's on the feet and like crazy fun if it goes to the ground because these guys are very good scramblers. So I'm actually excited about this one. And you guys know I'm not like the biggest Patchy Mix fan. Like I'm not the biggest fan of his style, but I still recognize that Patchy Mix is a very very good fighter, and people like kind of forget because of that Mario Bautista fight. And I said Bautista has a bad matchup. He's going to make him look bad. That doesn't mean that Patchy Mix is a bad fighter, and I think he will remind people that he's actually quality here. Daniel Santos versus Yusang Yu. This one is not like the sleeper hit here. This one is going to rule. It's fantastic fight. Fantastic fight. And those are the good fights, to be honest, man. Those are the good fights. I don't have like super high hopes on Basharat versus Gutierrez. Shahbazyan versus Muniz. There's a small chance. Big chance that Ateva Gutierrez just catches a body here. To be honest, like I'm not super looking forward to Pyfer versus Magomedov, even though I think it is like good matchmaking here. So yeah, um, that's the pay-per-view. That's the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the audio version as always. And thank you for supporting. Remember to buy your merch or join the Patreon if you haven't already. Exclusive content, t-shirts, whatever you need, I got you covered. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you. Bye.